Brian Dillon, Essayism, on Form, Feeling, and Nonfiction. On Essays and Essayists, on the death of a moth, humiliation, the Hoover Dam, and how to write. An inventory of objects on the author's desk, and an account of wearing spectacles, which he does not. What another learned about himself the day he fell unconscious from his horse, of noses, of cannibals, of method, diverse meanings of the word lumber. Many vignettes published over decades in which the writer or her elegant stand-in described her condition of dislocation in the city, and did it so blithely that no one guessed it. It was all true. A dissertation on a roast pig, a heap of language, a tour of the monuments, a magazine article that in tone and structure so nearly resembles its object, or conceals it, that flummoxed reader depart in droves, a sentence you could whisper in the ear of a dying man. An essay upon essays on the author's brief and oblique friendship with the great jazz singer, a treatise on melancholy, also on everything else, a species of drift or dissolve at the levels of logic and language, and that time and time again requires the reader to page back and wonder, how did we get from here to there, from there to here? For before the writer's skill, or perhaps his intention, a sermon of death, preached in the poet's final days on earth, before the picture of his own shrouded person. The metaphoric power of shame, of same, the womb a grave, the grave a whirlpool, death's hand stretched to save us, a long read, a short history of decay, a diary's prompt towards self-improvement, to sew my buttons on a dancer arrayed like an insect or a ray of light, love alphabetized, life alphabetized. Every second of Silent Clown's appearance on screen. Dissected. We commit a cruelty against existence if we do not interpret it to its death. On the cows outside the window, their movement in mass, their possible emotions, what happened next will amaze you. Upon a time a dutiful thing, set and judged by teachers, proof because proof needed, of what? Compliance? Competence and comprehension, proper meanness of the ambition, but later discovered in the library under the bedclothes, sparks or scintillations, stabs at bewilderment, some effort or energy flung in the void, and style too, scurrilous entertainments, a writing that's all surface, Terosian and poise, something so artful it can hardly be told from disarray, an art, among others, of the sidelong glance, obliquities, and discretions, an addiction to an arduous learning, a study of punctuation marks, their meaning and mortality. 7 data manifestos, 41 false starts, the writer's technique in 13 theses. An account of what passed through the author's mind in the seconds before a stagecoach crash, somewhere on the road between Manchester and Glasgow, in the second or third summer after Waterloo. The writing of the disaster, confessions, cool memories, a collection of sand, curiosities, the philosophy of furniture, an account of the late eclipse, what it was like to fly high above the capital through silver mist and hail. When flying was yet new, the answer, immemorable, arrow shot at us, down the August Avenue for our approach. Imagine a type of writing so hard to define its very name it should be something like an effort, an attempt at trial, surmise or hazard, followed likely by failure. Imagine what it may rescue from disaster and achieve it at the levels of form, style, and texture, and therefore, though some might call it as therefore, the level of thought. Not to mention feeling. Picture if you can its profile on the page, from solid spate of an argument or narrative to isolated primorities of text, these composing in their sum the archipelago of a work or a body of work. The page of an estuary dotted at intervals with the typographical buoys or markers, and all the currents or sediments in between, sermons, dialogues, lists, and surveys, small entities of print or whole books constructed as single essays, a shoal or school made of these. Listen for the possible cadences in this thing might create, or sound and authoritative, ardent and fizzing, slow and exacting to the point of plain or pleasure, halting, vulnerable, tentative, brutal, preemptory, a shuffling or an amalgam of all such actions or qualities, an uncharted tract or plane, and yet certain ancient routes allow us to pilot our way through to the source, then out again, adventuring. I dream of essays and essayists, real and unreal authors, achieved and impossible examples of genre. And what exactly? Perform a combination of exactitude and evasion that seems to me to define what writing ought to be, a form that would instruct, seduce, and mystify in equal measure. But the essay has no form, it has no form. It is a game that creates its own rules. Does that sound like what one might want from art or literature in general? Not from essays only? Perhaps one category stands for everything, defines what I want to call from all art forms. The boundaries of this thing, this entity or inclination I admire, these I have to determine later. For now it's enough, I hope, to acknowledge that what I desire in essays, all those essays' names are alluded to in the list above, almost all of which are real, is this simultaneously acute and the susceptible, to be at once the wound and piercing act of precision that makes it sound as though all I care for is style. That old-fashioned thing, it might well be true, but isn't style exactly a contention with the void, an attitude or alignment plucked from chaos and nullity? Style as the prize, not a rule of the game. Style as a sport in another sense too. Botanical anomaly or innovation, avant-garde mutant. Don't sports get assimilated in the end? Aberrations accommodated, rogues, freaks, and rarities, corralled and tamed, curiosities neatly labeled, safely immured in vitrines and cabinets. I may have imagined all of this. I might be describing a form that does not yet exist. I have no clue how to write about the essay as a stable entity or an established class, how to trace its history diligently from uncertain origins through successive phases of literary dominance and abeyance, to its present status as modest publishing reverent. The genre, please do not call it creative nonfiction, on which many writers' and readers' hopes are hung, many print and outline columns filled with reflections on whether nonfiction is the new fiction, the essay the new novel, confession the new innovation, or rather, I know too well how essay on essays get written, what are its touchstones, where its arguments directed, how circular in the sense that the writer is explaining a form to which he or she hopes to yoke the present text. I like circles and lines and symmetry too, more than is good for me as a writer and as human. But in this case I cannot give myself to an elegant tale about the essay, neither to a pointed defense of rhetorical apology, a psyched manifesto. I found myself allergic to polemics, and so in the pages that follow, some partisans of political essaying or boisterous critical opinion may find that their exemplars are absent. Not that I dislike certain violence in the essay, but I can't believe in writing that is forcefully only itself. I want obliquity, essays that approach their targets, for there must be targets slantwise, or with hail or of conflicted attitudes. This may be political, even radical. It will often look like something else. What is used to be called formalism or dismissed as aestheticism, I will have to write. I can only write in fits and starts, in passages that inspire to something like an argument. But others, too, that will seem to come from the very confusion the first class exists to hear. There are many passages in the works of the great essayists, and perhaps also the less than great, that will sanction a failure or refusal to cohere. Here's the poet William Carlos Williams in the essay that yielded an epigraph for this book. Each essay rings the changes of its range, the breadth, the penetration moving inward about the fashionable brick of all styles. Unity is the shallowest, the cheapest deception of all composition. In nothing is the banality of the intelligence more clearly manifested. There is no less significant matter for the attention. Every piece of writing, it matters not what it is, has unity. Inexpert or bad writing, most terribly so, but ability in an essay is multiplicity, infinite fracture, the intercrossing of opposing forces, establishing any number of opposed centers of stillness.